Hello, Central New York, and hello, hockey fans all across the internet, and welcome to the Central New York Hockey Report podcast. I'm your host, Scott Kinville, and we're back. You know, everybody's been on the end of semester break as far as college goes. You know, high schools have been on break. Well, we've sort of been on break. We didn't have a show last week, so we're back this week.
But that's Christmas and New Year's. Come on.
Well, yeah, but you know what, though? I mean, listen, podcasts never sleep.
Yeah, they don't.
I stole something from Wall Street. You ever seen that movie?
No.
You've never seen that movie?
Yeah.
It's a classic.
I have seen it, but I don't
Gordon
remember.
Gekko?
Yeah,
You know,
don't give me the Hollywood names. It doesn't work for me.
No. I'll tell you what. Here's a really good Hollywood name. That's Dave the Save Warner for everybody who doesn't know.
Yeah, they do.
How are you?
I put there I am somewhere. See, the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not working for me here.
Well, I'll get you a new one. All right. I suppose I'd give you something anyway.
Yeah.
Besides headaches.
All right.
And Jordy's supposed to be joining us. We don't know. He's probably having technical issues again.
He was.
The common flock flew away, but that's okay because our guest this week is going to really help us unravel this college hockey season second half coming up here in Central New York. Before I bring him in, though, he's been hard at work with a brand new full 60, and I want to show a clip from that because it's probably the best one I've seen yet. And so.
The Plattsburgh State Oswego hockey rivalry, there's nothing better than that. There's nothing bigger than that.
There it is.
And he was smiling through the whole thing, too.
Well, I would be, too, if I made an awesome video like that. The host of the Full 60, the host of the D3 Hockey News podcast, the walking encyclopedia of Division III hockey, the one, the only, Mr. Chris Sugar. How are you, pal?
Well, I appreciate the intro. I'm doing all right. And I was smiling just because I just kind of laugh at some things when it's just replaying. I don't know. Like you had it. It's a good intro, but it was mainly like, you know, you have the earbuds, it sounded very good, and like you're introing me, so it's just kind of funny, like there.
Oh yeah, we're like peanut butter and jelly around here. We just go together. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh man, so you've been busy despite a little bit of a college hockey break, you know. So you got a new podcast out right now. I believe the head coach of the Manhattanville women's hockey team, correct?
Yes, that's the one that's out now. And after we finish this up, I have one with Wisconsin Superior. So there's, you know, we're keeping it rolling.
See, Dave, I told you, podcasts never sleep.
Yeah, I know. Oh, don't tell me about that. I've done since our last one, probably 3.
I know, right?
Yeah. So, man.
So tell us about this episode of the Full 60, because like I said, you've got a few episodes out now, and that to me was the best one you've done so far. A big rivalry game, suffice to say.
Yeah, that was the best one by far. I mean, in terms of content, it was just because again, thanks to Coach Moffitt of Plattsburgh, he let us kind of like go in the locker room, get clips with that, get an interview with him before the game, which obviously, you know, time is scarce. So he let us do that, which was great. It was everything. They made it as easy as possible, except getting up there. It's just a pain. Driving up there, it's, you know, you get up past Canton and Potsdam, and then you get into the middle of nowhere, you get, you know, black ice, and it just gets kind of annoying. But no, it was the best. I mean, the Final Four, I think Adrian and UNE was the best game by a mile, and I don't think that's ever going to be beaten, the 8-7 overtime win that Adrian had. But yeah, I mean, I think especially just with logistically, this one, it was the easiest to do just because we were, again, like press box, it's a perfect view up there. So you're dead center ice. It's very bright in there. So it sometimes looks kind of dark on the stream, which it's not. It's very bright. So the lighting was very good. John had a good camera angle the whole game. We were able to, like we wanted to, based off of suggestions and just what we wanted to do from the start, give more of an inside look and be able to do more like the interviews, you know, show the locker room shots and just show around the rink. And so and again, for a game like that, Oswego and Plattsburgh, it doesn't hurt either. So yeah, I mean, we would agree. We thought it was the best, and it's doing good. And yeah, we're happy with the response to it. It was a fun weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. As well you should be, because like I said, it was awesome. Well, one of the teams featured in that was the Oswego State Lakers men's team. And of course, they are right here in our Central New York wheelhouse, right by you as you hail from nearby. So anyways, let's talk about them for a second. So they just had the Oswego State, it was the Hockey Classic, I believe, up there, correct? Last weekend?
Yes, they call
Okay.
it's like the Clarendon or whatever it used
I
to be.
couldn't remember who the sponsor was. That
I've
was
been
it.
calling it the Pathfinder Hockey Classic
Yeah.
because that's what it was called for the first I don't know how many years. So I just rolled that.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, they're 8-6-1 overall. They're 6-2 or 6-2 in the SUNYAC. This has been a real roller coaster ride for the Lakers this season. They got 6 games played against ranked opponents already. They're 3-3 in those games, including 2 wins against number 1 teams. As a matter of fact, they beat Plattsburgh in that full 60 episode there when Plattsburgh was number 1. However, the tournament didn't go as expected. Concordia came in and beat them in the first game. It was 8-5, I believe. And then there was the next game was against Cortland, which ended up going to the shootout.
Yeah, Oswego, and again, people have this idea that I have my opinions on them. I have my opinions on many teams, but they're the most inconsistent team in Division III hockey, and they're also the most entertaining because you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, again, they make any game entertaining. There's really not a boring game with them because you don't know what's going to occur. They go play Utica. Now, to be fair, Utica looked half asleep in the game. I think you might agree. I don't even know. Utica look terrible, except for about 10. They look good for maybe like 10 minutes. But besides that, and I think Coach Heenan and Coach Daring would both agree. I mean, the team, it didn't look good.
Absolutely.
But, they go beat them. Fair enough to them, all the credit in the world to beat Utica. You give Geneseo a run in conference. You only lose, I think it was 2-1, and Geneseo's goalie stood on his head. And then you go beat Plattsburgh in Plattsburgh, which oddly enough, that series, the road team has been the better team in the past probably 6 to 8 years. The road team has usually been the dominant force. And then you go, you beat Hobart on opening night. So it's a team that nobody would want to probably play in the NCAA tournament if you get there. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I mean, the Concordia game, I don't know if you paid much attention or if anybody else did, but it was 8-5. Probably one of the crazier games that I've seen there, just because I thought, again, it's a West team coming in. They're a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get. Their record was 3-8, I think. It means nothing. It just doesn't. It's like St. John's going into Utica, I think, with like 2-6,
Sure.
or like 2, whatever it was. It's a West team. You don't know anything about them. Everybody in the city of Oswego, if they told you they knew who they were lying because they didn't. That's how it was. And they played. Concordia just bullied them at the end of the day, like a lot of West teams do to East teams. The first initial time they'll play them, they just bullied them around the ice, and goaltending was Oswego. You could tell was 100 times more skilled, and that's no offense to Concordia. It's just it's factual.
It's the fact, right?
They were way more skilled. Concordia had nothing. They couldn't compete on that level in terms of just pure skill, but they just outbodied them. They were hammering them into the boards. They committed some penalties that I think they weren't used to, as which typically tends to happen is some West teams. If you're playing out East, you're going to get called for some penalties that you may not think, that you're not used to just because it's played differently. And they were called for a 5-minute major early in the game that I believe, they were down. I think they gave up a power play goal on it. Then they tied it up with a shorthanded goal. I forget because the Concordia had 3 shorthanded goals in the game, which is a whole nother story. But yeah, that's another exciting aspect of Oswego. I mean, the power play might feature 2 goals in it, even on a minor, because against Elmira, I believe they gave up 2 in the game in Utica. Against Concordia, they give up 3 shorthanded goals, and it's like, Concordia goes 2. I think Concordia had 2 power play goals, and then you add 3 shorthanded.
Sure,
it's like
special teams make the difference.
What the that I've never seen an Oswego power play be that bad, just as a season overall. Like how I can't remember I'd love to know if they ever gave up 3 before, shorthanded goals,
Right.
or even multiple, and it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just saying you almost feel like the Twilight Zone music should be playing because it's truly like what is happening here. But looking at the standing, or I'm sorry, the statistics. Obviously, the offense for Oswego runs through Shane Bull and Tyler Flack. There's no doubt about that.
Oh.
Flack's got 11 goals. Bull's got 26 points. He's got 8 power play goals. So when those two get rolling, Oswego's a very difficult team to beat. Looking at the second half of their schedule, not quite as loaded as the first half, but they still do have a few tough games coming up. Geneseo comes to town on February 3rd. Geneseo is ranked 6th right now. And then, of course, Plattsburgh comes in a week later on February 10th. They still got to play Cortland again. Do
they go to Geneseo?
No, according to the schedule, Geneseo is coming to Oswego. So, unless I just read that wrong when I was transcribing everything, which is very possible. But if you look, I got all kinds of handwritten notes here. So
look at the frown on Chris's face.
Yeah,
no, I'm just saying because it threw me off. I was
snickering at me.
No, it just threw me off. No, it's got to be an away game because they already played in the Swing
okay?
In the year.
Well, like I said, I was just handwriting everything down.
No, you're fine. It just threw me off for a second. I'm like, hold up, my thing.
Yeah, right. But you know what, though, in looking at this remaining schedule, with having Plattsburgh and Cortland at the end of the season, now, if you put in 2 good games against them, get some momentum going into the SUNYAC tournament, you don't know what could happen.
Well, the problem is that hasn't been the issue. The problem has been the games they should win, which they have plenty of them in the second half. That's the issue. So, I mean, you can have it's great that you don't have a loaded schedule, but the issue is you've been better with the loaded schedule than you have against the teams that you should beat. A 3-8 Concordia team, I don't care if it's a West team or an East team, you should beat them. Like a St. John's team, you should probably beat them with the skill level you have. You shouldn't lose 14-4 to Elmira in 2 games.
Right.
It's like,
there's truth to that,
so I think, and also another fun fact, this is kind of a wild card just logistically. They play at 11 a.m. this Tuesday against Nazareth in Oswego.
You know what? Colgate women are doing that on Tuesday, too. It's the kids' game. They're playing.
And then Utica.
Getting the high school kids at all into the game.
I think Utica's doing that as well.
Oh, that is
Utica.
I love that.
The Utica women with Chatham, I think February.
Yeah.
Might be end of January. Sometime then.
Beginning of February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So they're doing that. So, I mean, an 11 a.m. game, I think, obviously you have the advantage playing at home. You don't have to leave, whatever time. But, just knowing they're college kids at the end of the day, it's 11 a.m. for a hockey game. You're going to be up. So anything can really happen there. The building won't have anybody in it. Everybody's working in general. So besides, the schools and whatnot, but for what they're used to. So that game kind of go however, but no, they should do fine in the second half. But then again, if you look at how they've done thus far against some teams, you're like, well, it wouldn't shock me if they lose 3 or 4 of them, 5, just because how it's gone. Again, if they play to their potential, they should only lose 1 or 2. That's just a fact.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's like you said, never a dull moment. That's for sure.
No, they're arguably the most entertaining team to watch in D3. And they're also, for the record, the best 8-6-1 Division III team of all time. There's no 8-6-1 team that's better.
For sure. We had mentioned that Utica game. That was December 9th. We were both up there to watch that. And I'll tell you, what a beautiful facility up there in Oswego, too. Definitely a shout out to them because it is really awesome up there. So we'll use that to segue right over to the Pioneers. So the Pioneers, they're ranked 7th right now. The new poll has yet to come out. The game against Oswego was their last game before the end of semester break. Like you said, I think we can all agree that Utica certainly didn't play their best game. Oswego did play very good. They had a very heavy forecheck that game, which was very noticeable. But overall, the Pioneers this season are 6-2-3. Let me see. Where did I write it down? Lost my train of thought. Anyways, they're 6-2-3, right? They're undefeated in the UCHC at 5-0-1. So this team right now, I didn't know what to expect out of the Pioneers coming in because they had such a young team coming in. Over half the roster is first-year players. Definitely some flashes of brilliance for sure against, like Adrian for starters. It was a great way to start the season. A couple of times, like Stevenson gave him some problems. Obviously, Oswego beat him. And then, of course, Elmira beat him in the Thanksgiving showcase. But overall, Chris, I kind of think that they're right about where they should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think for them the schedule played to their advantage. I think it's good that they had Adrian first and Stevenson first, because the way Stevenson's playing now, I think it could go differently if they played, now or in the next couple weeks. Just because I think they're one of those teams that they're not a flashy brand, and they're not somebody that everybody thinks of or realizes, but they're always very good. Even if their record isn't great, they're always a pain, and they have been with Utica. And so I think Stevenson, I think the UCHC, the playoffs will be interesting. I think Stevenson could, they could possibly pull a UNE. Who knows? But I think Utica, they should have kind of smooth sailing the rest of the way in the UCHC, except I'd say just watch out for Alvernia. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's something with Alvernia with the way they play. They're very physical. Some may say not in a good way, but whatever the case is, I think Alvernia, I think they could give it a close one like they did last year. I think they're leading like 1-0 with it going into the final period. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, and obviously the end of semester break couldn't have come at a better time for Utica. They were 1-2-1 in their last 4 games. But in looking ahead to the schedule for the second half, it's all UCHC games. 9 of them are at home, 5 are on the road. So like you said, it looks pretty good for Utica for the remainder of the season. But again, in those type of situations, you really got to watch out for the upset. But I mean, it's pretty notable, like I said, with these younger players. Yeah, like Michael Herrera, who's got 5 goals. Aiden Hughes got 5 goals, tied for the team lead. Aiden Hughes is also tied for the team lead in points at 11. Brian Scoville, the captain, the defenseman there, he has really stepped up in the place of guys like Justin Allen and Jason Dobey, Connor Fedoruk, who they all lost to graduation. So, like I said, so far, so good for the Pioneers. Ethan Roberts has been a big addition for the team coming in from D1 St. Thomas. He's 5-2-3 with a 1.89 GAA and a 930 save percentage. So, again, the only thing I really worry about with Utica is with the UCHC schedule being what it is, kind of the same thing that's happened over and over again for the past couple of seasons where, you have that easy second half and then you get to the NCAAs and all of a sudden the competition ramps right back up again.
Yeah, I mean, I think what helps with them is they're very balanced in terms of points and scoring. It's not like you have to rely on 1 or 2 or 3 guys. They seem very just balanced, and I think it comes with younger players again because you don't have. I'm not saying they did, but you just don't have possible egos or possible guys who are kind of the give them the puck, let them do their thing. Versus now it's kind of like Keenan, and he can kind of craft his own. He's got younger players, just everybody plays one unit, try not to do as much individual. I mean, again, I just think that could play to their advantage. But, a lot of these guys have never seen these UCHC opponents. They haven't been used to beating them up for a couple of years. So it's one of those where you don't really know.
And
again, it's kind of a wild card.
It's funny you mentioned that because when Coach Heenan was on the show, he said something to that effect. That's actually an advantage of having the younger players on the team because when you have a veteran-heavy team and you've just been, let's just be honest here, beating the crap out of some of these teams for 4 years, you almost like go into cruise control, and that can really hurt a team going into a tournament like the NCAAs. But with these young kids, they've never seen these players before. They've never seen these teams. So it's going to be, a stay hungry throughout the whole thing for them. So, yeah, I think that could really work out insofar as that goes. You know what? Let's switch over to Hamilton College because some people get really upset when you say they're a crosstown rival because technically they're not. They're in Clinton, which is a few miles away from Utica. But anyways, a regional rival, suffice to say. But the Hamilton College men are 8-2-0 this season. They're 4-1-0 in the NESCAC. Chris, they've been really impressive this year. They've got 2 wins over number 14 Trine already. They've lost once to Trine, but that was a 4-3 overtime game. This all happened this past weekend. You know what? They had the number 2 ranked recruit class, according to neutralzone.net, going into this season for Division III, and it's starting to pay off. What do you think here? I mean, you got to figure if they keep this pace up, they got to get some respect in the polls, no?
I think being in the NESCAC, they'll have to wait a little bit just because I think after this weekend they could, because they'll have enough games where people might start to look at it and be like, oh, okay, let's vote them in. Trine's an interesting one. I mean, again, a West team, I would rate them heavier than I would another one. So those are two very good wins. I mean, you don't know who. It's hard to tell who Trine is on the Western scale because they've played good teams, but they've played a lot out east as of late. So their schedule's kind of weird. It's almost been sort of 50-50. Right? They might even have more games out east than they have out west. I mean, because they played 2 against Fredonia. They had the Canton tournament, and then, or Potsdam, whoever it was, there. And then
it was Potsdam, Canton, and Trine and Hamilton.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you've had Hamilton, twice on their own minus the tournament. So,
Sure.
It's kind of weird when you see them, but no, I mean, those are 2 good wins. The NESCAC, everybody beats each other up. So if they can get out of there, I mean, they're off to a good start now in the NESCAC. So clearly they've got something. So yeah, I mean, they're off to a good start, and I think the only loss is to Trinity in the NESCAC, which,
yes,
not expected, but it's usually that team that, that's expected to come out of there. So yeah, and also, I mean, Trinity, that's another one. They have the opportunity to have a home Final Four, so there's always that up for bid.
Yeah, right. Always a little bit of an extra motivator, when you can play your own Final Four at home, that's for sure. I actually covered the Saturday game there at Trine, or against Trine last Saturday, and I can tell you, you talk about the Western game being physical. That game was physical. You could definitely tell that these were 2 teams that were just sick and tired of seeing each other because there was definitely not some pleasantries exchange in that game.
It is weird seeing. I like knowing the last time that was when you had a crossover team play 3 times in one regular season. Just because it's kind of weird that they were both in the same tournament, and then they already scheduled, and then Trine already was scheduled to go play Hamilton. So I think that's kind of cool. I mean, I think you don't really see that, but again, I like crossover games. I mean, you're seeing it more. And, obviously budgets have to fall in place, but it's always good to see it.
Yeah, you got to imagine that the Western teams have got to budget a lot more for travel than the Eastern teams do. But just to close out with Hamilton College, Charlie Archer, their goaltender, has been lights out. He is 6-1-0 on the season. He's got a 0.86 goals against average, 971 save percentage, and 3 shutouts. So I think that's a big part of their success right there, is definitely being able to keep the puck out of the net with Charlie Archer in there.
Yeah, but it's 7 other. I see this in 7 of their 10 games. They've given up 1 goal or less, so it's kind of a good recipe if you're gonna plan on winning. So
yeah, it really helps when you keep the puck out of the net like that. Yeah. That's for sure. All right, well, let's finish up the men here. Let's touch on Morrisville for just a second. Morrisville is having a tough season. You really got to feel for them. They're 3-11-0 overall with a 1-7-0 mark in the SUNYAC. Not a lot going right for them, but you look at the schedule for the second half of the season. They still got some tough games to play too. They got to go to Plattsburgh. They got to play Cortland. They got Oswego, and they've got Geneseo towards the end of the season. So, quick observations on the Morrisville Mustangs.
I think you kind of said it best. I don't, to put it politely, they're not exactly having an ideal season. You got the win over Potsdam, and then Canton, who's also, I'm surprised by that. I mean, Canton's having a real bad year. And then MCLA, that's kind of expected. It's a new program. Maybe they'll take a couple in the second half. I mean, they have Canton again. Maybe they could take that one. They got Potsdam. They already got them once. Western New England, that's kind of a sneaky game. WNE's pretty good. Albertus is having a decent year, so I don't know if they take that one. So you're going to need to see a radical turnaround if they I would say they're likely the most wins they'll get is probably 6 or 7.
Yeah. Now refresh my memory
with the way they've been going now.
Right. Now refresh my memory. Not all the teams make the tournament in the SUNYAC. Is that correct? Or
the bottom 3 don't, and then the top 2. The 3 through 6 they play on Wednesday of the quarterfinal week, and then, or I should say, the semifinal week. They play on Wednesday. Then they go to the number 1 seed gets the bottom seed, and we're the lowest remaining seed. And then the second seed gets the highest seed. They play, and then they have the championship the following week.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, you know what? If you get a few breaks here in the second half, turn it on, maybe you sneak into the SUNYAC tournament. But, let's see. Let's hope they can turn it around a little bit because you don't want to see them, going with the record like that. So why don't we do this? Let's take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to cover the women's end of Division III hockey and the Colgate Raiders right here when we come back.
Visit My Little Falls and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the city and the area. Our mission is to generate interest in the community and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes Store, listen to our podcast, or sign up for our weekly email newsletter. Stop by today. You'll be glad you did.
I got to say, I've missed that song.
How long has it been since you've heard it?
It's been a couple weeks.
Okay, all right.
I was actually thinking about asking you to send me that file so I could set that for my alarm tone.
Oh, geez.
Spring right out of bed, just like Rocky Balboa.
I don't want to do that.
No, you don't want to crack a couple eggs into a cup and
No.
Okay. Well,
I will say, if I were to picture Little Falls, that's probably how I'd picture it. That based on that B-roll.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. I'll take that.
I was going to say, we got to differentiate there. Does that mean the B-roll or the cracking of the eggs into the cup and
no,
drinking?
he meant the B-roll.
No.
Okay.
I just meant the B-roll, the photos in it. That's, if I had to picture Little Falls, that's probably how what I do. The people in the church are just playing about, that's probably how I'd view it.
Well, we'll have to get you down here for an in-studio show sometime.
Do that.
Well, we can do it. I got to get a TV or something behind me so I can get the logo or whatever. If it was in,
we got
right?
room for you.
Yeah, exactly right. All right. Well, let's continue. I saw Jordy was trying to pop in for a second, but I think he's back out. So I think the common flock flew away again for the show. That's okay. All right. So we're back with the second half here of the Central New York Hockey Report. You know what, Chris? Let's start with Hamilton College since they're ranked the highest in the USCHO. They're 6-2-1 overall, 1-2-1 in the NESCAC. They're 2-2 against ranked opponents in the first half of the season. But you know what? They're playing a very, very strong game, very strong defensive game like they always do. They're coming off a win on Tuesday against SUNY Canton. They won 2-0. And that was their first game back from the break. Before they went to the break, they beat Utica at home, who's ranked number 9, 1-0 in what was a very good game. I was there, and it was just an excellent, excellent game. So your thoughts on the Hamilton College Hamilton College Women Continentals? Here we go. I'm ready to talk about Utica.
I mean, I think, in the NESCAC, you're going to get, with the way a lot of teams structure their out-of-conference schedules, you're always going to have high and pairwise. So Hamilton has a good shot at the tournament, relatively until that changes. So, and I also like how they play a strong out-of-conference schedule. It's not like, most in the league where they don't.
Right.
Hamilton, they're playing Nazareth, they're playing Utica. Canton isn't a pushover, honestly. I mean, Canton's I think they're 9-4. I mean, people would say what they want. Canton's not Plattsburgh, but it's not a pushover of some of the NEHC teams that they usually just schedule. They also play Elmira, and they play Oswego and Cortland. I mean, so Hamilton, they play one of the best schedules every year as of late, I should say. I mean, at Middlebury, the same way in the league, so they already set themselves up. If they make the postseason, you're going to be prepped and you're going to be prepared. But I think, like the NESCAC, a lot of their games, it's always just low scoring and defensive. They gave Amherst runs in the beginning, and it's a shocker they even scored a goal because it seems like Natalie Stott on Amherst doesn't give up goals very often.
Right.
So,
right.
There's that. But no, it's one of those where they're looking good. You have a new head coach, but she's been there a while as the assistant. So I'm not sure there was much change, if any. But no, I mean, like you had kind of said preseason, they lost some of their top point leaders. So you didn't really know who was going to step up and whatnot. But they seem to be doing pretty good and kind of right back where they had left off of their program best season, making the Final Four run.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we had mentioned that in the preseason show with Nancy Lowe and Abby Coons graduating. You didn't know where the offense was going to come from. Well, I'll tell you what, Claire McGinnis has stepped up goal-wise. She has basically taken Lowe's place. She's got 7 goals on the season. And from the blue line, Sammy Quackenbush has 8 assists, so she stepped right into that Abby Coons role. So it's almost like it's kind of weird to say nothing changed, but nothing changed because you're just basically replacing the roles with faces, right? And it's interesting to note that Abby Coons is actually an assistant coach there now. I noticed that when I was looking at the roster. I'm like, oh, no kidding. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. But I
had to take a second peek. I had to take a second look at that. At the last name you said, Quackenbush. That's quite the name.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
no, I mean, nothing wrong with it. It kind of threw me off for a second. Like, is that what I think he just said?
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, especially around me, you gotta watch me at all times because I could screw anything up. Everybody knows that. So yeah, there it is. He was waiting all day for that.
I don't get much chance.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much joy. It's gotta come from there.
I could have a little bit.
But Chris, looking at that second half of the schedule, like you said, Hamilton never plays an easy schedule, and it doesn't get any easier in the second half. So this weekend they go to Colby for 2 games. Colby is ranked 11th. And then they go to Elmira January 9th. Elmira is 12th. So you're looking at 3 games against ranked teams in less than a week, right? And then looking further down the schedule, they play Cortland at home on January 23rd. Cortland's ranked 15th. And then, of course, they close the season out with a NESCAC rivalry at Middlebury, February 16th and 17th. Middlebury is 4th. So, there's no rest for the wicked, as they say, as far as Hamilton goes. But, I actually think that they prefer to play a tough schedule like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you should. Like, I think this weekend with Colby, I think it'll show more about Colby than it does about Hamilton. I mean, Hamilton's been tested and they've done what they've done. I think Colby's the one who you never really know. Like, again, Colby's playing a full schedule this year, which is good. Last year they didn't, which was unfortunate, but they are this year, which is good, as always. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Hamilton and Colby, it should be, the classic low-score NESCAC game, probably split the series or maybe one will win and then there'll be a tie. A sweep by either would be impressive just because the way they usually always play. Elmira, that's another one where you don't really know with Elmira. Elmira's had, it seems like some games they just come out and play and they can challenge anybody. I mean, obviously they'll challenge anybody, but
right.
They sometimes drop games where you're kind of like, their roster on paper looks very good, and then what they do is just another thing. I mean, like Norwich is kind of taking that conference this season for the moment, and we'll see if the second half Elmira can get it back. But with the way the pairwise will currently be going for Elmira, a win over Hamilton would help them immensely. I'll say that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. There's no doubt. All right, so we had mentioned the Utica Pioneers women, and let's switch over to them right now. They're ranked 9th right now. They're 9-1-2 overall. They're 6-0-2 in the UCHC. Playing really good hockey. Their last game was that 1-0 loss at Hamilton, but again, that was a game too that could have gone either way because, like I said, I was there and it was just a great game. But so far, so good for the Pioneers. They're 2nd in the nation in goals per game at 4.3. They're 5th in the nation at goals allowed per game, and that's 1.0. So, I mean, they're definitely keeping the puck out of the net, and they're scoring goals. So the surprising thing for me is, you look at up and down this roster, and it's a loaded roster. It really is. But you would expect to see like Erica Sloan at the top of the statistics, and it's Haley Modlin, who is really, really ramped it up this season. She's got 12 goals on the season. Tess Barrett leads the team in assists with 10. Carly Stefanini, the power play specialist, she's got 4 power play goals. Erica Sloan does lead the team in shots, but an overall well-balanced team. Angela Hawthorne just being Angela Hawthorne. To me, one of the best goalies in women's Division III hockey. She's 9-1-2 with a 1.06 goals against average, a 951 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. Looking at the schedule here, we've always talked about the Nazareth. That's like always seems to be the one that's everybody got circled on the calendar for the UCHC. They're playing January 26th and 27th. It looks like both games are in Utica. Naz is number 13. Otherwise, outside of Oswego, it's a heavy UCHC schedule the rest of the way out. Thoughts on the Pioneers?
I would probably say, I mean, again, Nazareth, I think it's going to be the game people look at. I think they should also look at Chatham. I think Chatham I think Chatham takes one, at least, in that series. I think Chatham's very good, and they're overlooked by a lot of people. And that's another one where is that the 2 p.m. start time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. That's for some reason I thought it was like 11:08. Okay. So they're doing the 2 p.m. start time, which is good. Get the kids out there, and plus the Nexus, it's always a good time for the woman's environment. But no, Nazareth will be interesting. Nazareth's having if you ask them what they're doing, I think they're having a down year, but it's a very young team. I mean, Utica, they have to get over on paper right now, Utica should win one at least, or go undefeated, win in a draw. Right. But it's just about beating the team, beating that uniform. And, when you keep losing and losing and losing to the same uniform each time, you just got to break through, and you got to, it's almost like just get one. And then, maybe the floodgates will open eventually, but like after last season where I think they played in like 5 overtime periods in 3 games, with the playoffs, it's one of those where it's like, it's just about beating the jersey at that point, not even beating the players.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you get the feeling with Utica that, you got to feel that this has got to be the year right here that they do it. And it's not just because they got a lot of great, underclass players. It's, coming up through freshman, sophomore, junior, but you almost just get this feeling that, okay, if we're going to do it, this is going to be the year that we do it. And you mentioned Chatham, and I do want to point out that the weekend after they play Nazareth is when they played 2 against Chatham. So you almost feel that, if they win both of those Nazareth games, that could be a real problem going against Chatham, because you're on this emotional high that, hey, we did it. And now you got Chatham coming to town, or either way. I mean, if you don't do very good against Nazareth, and then all of a sudden you got a team like Chatham coming to town, which, like you said, a lot of people are overlooking, that could go either way.
Yeah. I mean, I think Chatham's 8-1-2 or something like that, and they, in all honesty, they should have been. It's why it's a 60-minute game, but they pretty much beat Nazareth until the last minute, where Nazareth tied it, and then they think they got, they tied it in the shootout win. Whatever the case was, they gave up the goal in the last minute, and they didn't get the win there. But Utica, it's one of those. I had asked Coach Clausen for the USCHO article, what would your Pioneers like for Christmas? And he said, home ice for the postseason. And it's like, well, you're pretty much getting your main postseason right here, and you get home ice it's regular season, but these are likely at the moment. These are the 2 teams that you're going to have to go through if you want to win the conference. And then, see if Manhattanville can get it back going, because they're, as of late, like last year, they could beat anybody. It was just consistency that they couldn't, seem to grasp. But I mean, they're the 2 teams you're going to have to go through, Chatham and Nazareth. So you get them on home ice. So there's your Christmas wish early, because if you beat those 2, you're going to get home ice.
Oh, absolutely. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I do, just before we finish up with Utica, I do want to mention that Haley Modlin is actually tied for 2nd in Division III in goals, and she's tied for 6th in points. Tess Barrett is tied for 6th in assists in Division III. So definitely getting it done at the Nexus Center and beyond for the Utica Pioneers. Okay, what's next here? Let's see. Why don't we go to the Morrisville Mustangs? Because, the Morrisville Mustangs, they are having a really, really good season. And I'm just trying to get to my notes here. Give me just a quick second. There they are. So Morrisville is 7-5-0 overall, which is significant because they were 8-16-1 last season. So, Coach Briggs is doing a pretty good job of turning things around there in Morrisville. They're 2-3-0 in the SUNYAC, but even still, their big three is Alana McDonald, Allie Davidson, and Haley Easton. McDonald leads the team in goals. She's also tied for the lead in assists, and she leads in points. But all three of them are contributing big time. They're getting great goaltending right now from Elizabeth Timby, who's 4-1-0 with a goals against average of 1.60, with a save percentage of 0.944, and she's got 2 shutouts. So, Chris, what is it with Morrisville that they've turned it around so much?
I mean, I think you have you have a young coach who wants to make a name for themselves. I mean, and not in a negative light. I mean, just in a good way. You have somebody who's really committed to building something, because if you can make Morrisville a good program or a competitive program, that shows a lot. And it's no shut at Morrisville. It's just one of those programs that if you can make a small program, one of the lower budget programs, very good or competitive, it shows a lot about who you are and who your staff is. And the thing with Morrisville, the games they've lost, they should have lost. It's not like
right.
It's not like they're losing games where you're kind of like, well, if you're gonna really say it's a good year, you got to beat that team. No, I mean, they lost to Cortland in overtime, and that's their assistant coach, Monica Cahill. That's her. She played there, and then Briggs, he was the assistant, so that was kind of the homecoming for the two of them. But you drop an overtime to them, close game. There's no shame in that. It's Cortland, and I believe they only had like 12 healthy players as of like middle of October or beginning of October. So, we didn't know if they'd have a roster for that one, but no, I mean, you lose to Cortland by 2-1 OT, you lose to Oswego, you lose to Plattsburgh, lose to Hamilton and Colby. I mean, I don't know what you expected them to do. Now you personally, but just, I don't know what somebody would expect, but those are the games they should lose at the stage they're at. But the teams they beat are teams that either would have been a competitive game last season or they would have lost. So if you're beating those teams, it's all really matters. And you're going to play more of those teams than you are the dominant force team. So if you could do that, you can get a 500 record out of it or just below 500. And again, for what that program's been over the years, I mean, if I had to guess, they're probably on pace to have one of the best years in a long time.
I would imagine so. I think that's fair to say. But, in looking at the second half schedule, they're certainly going to get challenged. Coming up tomorrow, well, we're recording on Thursday, so tomorrow being Friday, they've got SUNY Canton, who they're going to play 2 more times after that for a total of 3. And then after the first SUNY Canton game, they're at Plattsburgh the following weekend. And then they play Cortland twice the weekend after that. And they've also got Oswego twice coming up. So definitely a tough second half. But again, these are those, I don't want to say character building, but certainly pairwise rankings type of thing. And if they can put together some wins together, certainly going to make some noise. And, they could maybe end up in the NCAA tournament. Things go right.
Yeah. I mean, with Morrisville, might as well correct myself here. I didn't realize they were quite the team with Melissa Lamata at the helm when they were going 26-1 in 16-17. So there you go.
Right. It's been a while. Though. I mean, it's weird to say that was a long time ago.
It's been a little bit, but I mean, they went 20 wins, 6 losses, 20 wins, 6 losses, 1 tie, then 17-8-3, then 16-9-2, and then they kind of had the little downfall. But I mean, no, they actually had quite the team as a young program. Their overall program records, I don't think many people would realize this, 96, 87, and 12. So, yeah, there you go. It's a little fun fact.
Yeah, but still, I mean, looking at recent history, though, when you said there was a little bit of a fall there, it's really nice to see them turning things around.
Yep, no, 100%. And they're, and again, like with the SUNYAC on the women's side, you get those teams 3 times. So maybe they could steal one from Canton. Maybe they can steal one from Cortland. I mean, again, you can, or even Oswego. I mean, so there's winnable games there. And then I think Plattsburgh's a stretch, but, you never know. But
yeah,
in terms of Cortland, Oswego, and maybe Canton, like I said, maybe you steal a game from them and, you can make it a good season.
Yeah, and if anything, it's got to be a great building block going into next season as well. So,
and you also have to. I will point out a stat that not many may think of. You do have to think of the effect that having the D3 Hockey News sticker on their helmets having, on their rebuilding season. So I think that's an element that we might not realize. I've had a pretty good record with goalies here. I'm just going to point that out.
I was just going to say
Elmira's doing pretty good right now.
Yeah, Kyle Curtin, yeah. And so what are you trying to say, Chris? If you've got the D3 sticker, you have arrived. Is that what we're saying here?
I'm not saying you've arrived. I'm just saying it could potentially benefit you. If you watch the full 60 videos, Matt Petizian said it really made him feel mentally calm in net when he was making the save. So you heard it from the source, All-American. So I just, it's turned out to be factual to my, to my benefit.
Maybe you ought to go into advertising.
Maybe. It's been beneficial.
And there you go. And it's Dave's "The More You Know" music, because that's all I can think of every time I hear it. Remember that from the 80s? The more you know.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, let's finish up the women's end of things with Oswego. We were talking last night. They have had one heck of a schedule to play so far, and it looks like they're going to continue to have one heck of a schedule. But right now, they're 5-5-1 overall, 3-2-1 in the SUNYAC, and given the schedule that they've played, that's actually a really respectable mark. They've got 5 games already against ranked teams. Looking ahead, they've got Plattsburgh this weekend, and then going forward, they've also got games against Hamilton College, Utica, and Cortland. Plus SUNY Canton being the SUNYAC, they're in there too. So, like I said, given the competition, I actually think this is a really good mark they got.
Yeah, I mean, Oswego, they've come miles under Digby. He's doing a great job with them. Now that he's kind of really fully gotten his players, really, got himself in the role. Their 5-5-1 record is a lot more respectable than some teams that, let's say they're like, you only have a couple losses, maybe 1-3, but you have a lot of wins, but you've played, on paper, nobody. I mean, their 5-5-1 record's great with who they've played. William Smith's 10-3. 2 of the losses came to Oswego. So, I mean, in reality, you're looking at a 10-1 team if Oswego doesn't happen. And, you only lose to Plattsburgh 3-1. Plattsburgh is Plattsburgh. Their only losses or blemishes, I should say, on the schedule to Norwich. Canton won. I was kind of surprised by the Canton loss. I figured they'd beat Canton, but Canton got them 1-0. You tie Cortland, but all these games are on the road. I mean, they start off their season. If you start off with William Smith, they went away, home, away, 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 home, away, 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 away. And now you get 2 home. Now your welcome home is 2 games with Plattsburgh. So it's kind of like, well, welcome home. Now you get arguably the best team in the country, or top 3 team in the country, because River Falls isn't being touched at the moment. Then you get Hamilton in a couple weeks, and you get Utica and Cortland again twice. It's like, it's a great schedule. I mean, it sets you up if you can get out of the SUNYAC, it sets you up great. The only issue is getting out of the SUNYAC with teams like that, but because their pairwise is gone. It's just if you can get out of the SUNYAC, that's, you've played everybody there is to play with your resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's all building blocks, right? I mean, you want to talk about just a team builder as far as confidence wise too, get a couple more big wins against these teams, right? And that carries over through the rest of the season because, it almost kind of reminds me like the Hamilton effect, where you're constantly playing these top ranked teams and you just continue to build on it. So you never know. Like you said, if Oswego can get out of that SUNYAC, good things could happen for them.
Yeah, and like the thing with them is all their games, they've had some of the closest games. I mean, if you rattle off their schedule, I mean, they beat William Smith 2-1 in both games, 1 goal difference. They lost to Plattsburgh 3-1. I think they had an empty netter, so in reality, a 1-goal game. They lost to Canton 1-0. They tied Cortland 0-0. They lost to Adrian 2-1 and 1-0, both 1-goal games. Lost to Amherst 2-1. I mean, yeah. So pretty much every game, if you don't count empty netters, in their wins and losses has been decided by 1 goal minus, I think, only 2. Yeah, Only 2 games. They beat Morrisville 5-1. They beat Buffalo State 9-0. Every other game besides that, I believe, has been a 1-goal game if you don't count an empty netter, which is quite, it's kind of just surprising to see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's one of those, one bounce either way, and things could have gone the other way. So, yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, it's good on them to have the mark that they've got, given that the competition that they've played. So you know what, buddy, we did this. We had about an hour to work with, and we got this all done in about 50 minutes. Dave's over here grinning. You should see him, but don't get too confident, Dave, because I do have to mention, and Chris, I know you're the D3 guy, but we do have the Colgate Raiders, who are Division I, in our purview here. So I do want to mention that they're back as well. So the men, they go to Maine tomorrow night to take on the number 7 Black Bears. I got an article about it up on CNYHockeyReport.com previewing that series. So with the Colgate Raiders men, they're 6-8-2 overall. Kind of feeling their way through right now. It's been a little bit of an up and down season under new coach Mike Harder. But, folks, one thing you want to keep in mind here is the Raiders were right about this same mark at this same time last season. And what happened? They got hot in the second half. They went up to the ECAC tournament. They won it, and they ended up in the NCAAs. So you never know what could happen. Looking at their schedule ahead, after Maine, they've got LIU after that, and then after that, it's all an ECAC schedule. So, and that's where your bread and butter is. You win your conference games, you get a good seating in the tournament, and you never know what could happen. Now, the women, they were back in action last weekend. They won the battle at the Burgh. I love that tournament name. It's so cool. They won the whole thing, and I mean, they did it in convincing fashion too. The Raiders are definitely back. So they're 4th in the country. They're number 2 in the nation in goals scored per game, number 4 in goals allowed. They got the best power play in the country, number 4 on the penalty kill. They have got a loaded roster up and down, but they've also got a very, very tough second half coming up here. So they got 15 games in the second half of their season. Chris, 9 of them are against ranked teams. Starting this weekend, by the way, they're home for number 10 St. Lawrence, and then Saturday afternoon they take on number 5 Clarkson. So we were talking about earlier with teams playing tough schedules. This is the Division I version of it right here, because there is just in the ECAC is just a loaded conference. So really the winner of that has definitely got an inside track to the national championship. And the Raiders have got to be feeling it, because out of the ECAC right now, they're the best team. They've got, I think, like 5 in the top 15 scorers of the country. Just everywhere up and down the board, you're going to see Colgate Raiders. So this is another one of those teams like we were talking about with Utica. They got to be feeling this is going to be the year we're going to do it. So, best of luck to Coach Fargo's team. I'm actually going to be out there tomorrow night covering the Colgate St. Lawrence game. So check our Twitter or X. Sorry, Dave, don't get upset. X. Sorry.
I was coming after you.
Yeah, I corrected myself at CNY Hockey Report. We'll also put it up on our Instagram and Facebook too. But yeah, so Chris,
if you'd like, I could give my one Division I spiel that I do have.
Ooh,
yeah, let's hear it.
The only team that the Yukon Huskies, the women's team is doing very good this season. They're 11-4-1. They have number 2. You're talking about ranked teams. They have number 2 Minnesota this weekend. In Minnesota, they got back-to-back games. So see if they can get out of there with a win. I think that'd probably be the biggest win for the program, because they've just kind of come on as late. The men's team should be embarrassed. After coming off of their best season pretty much as a program, they're now 8-9-1. The new home rink, I don't know what the designers were thinking when you made it 2,600 seats or whatever that is, because that's a joke, but that's for another day. The men currently, they've had it pretty rough. They have Massachusetts. That's the big rival in football, which, rate that football team as you want. It's, hardly D1, but whatever the case is. We now have UMass. If you can beat UMass, you can lose every other game. That's fine. Just beat UMass. Then you got Maine. It's always a tough game next weekend, and I do like how they're on ESPN Plus now, so I can actually watch that. So that's the good benefit of ESPN Plus. So there's my D1 spiel. UConn, the women's team, keep doing what you're doing. The men's team, you're embarrassing the state of Connecticut.
You're so right about ESPN Plus, so I love it because all the ECAC games are on there. It's absolutely awesome. And, ironically, I forgot you were a UConn fan. The Colgate men opened their season against UConn this year. So,
yes, which I'm actually kind of annoyed I couldn't get down there because I should have gotten down there for a game. I got to see him last year play Union when they, last year, I think at the time that was the start of their run when they got, ranked in the top. They were ranked in the top 5, or top 7, and they beat Union in overtime in the XL Center. So that was actually my first game seeing them. But I'm annoyed that I didn't get down to Colgate. So maybe next year.
Next time, yeah, next time for sure.
Next time,
I got some pictures I can send you too. So it's all good.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Well, our hour is almost up, and I know you got to get to another podcast. So before we go, tell us where we can find you on the socials and the full 60, the whole shot. Let us know.
It's all under the same name. The original D3 Hockey News, very straight to the point, as I always say. It was a good name when I picked it back in the day. D with 3 I's, and then Hockey News. As I said, there's not much you can. If you just type in D3 News, I'm pretty sure it pops up on Google. So it was a pretty good name. But yeah, that's all the platforms. It's on YouTube, the full 60. And then, the Instagram, podcast, and Twitter, it's all just, I still call it Twitter. That's what I started on, and I always will. D3 Hockey News, and there you go. It's 10 away from 10K, so it might be 9 now. So I'm just waiting for 9 more people to click.
Give them a follow.
We'll be all good. Yeah, I'm just waiting for that. So
give them a follow. Even though you just made Dave have his grumpy face by saying Twitter, that's okay.
Well, it's what I still, that's what I started on, and I can't switch it.
Yeah, right.
I can't switch it.
There was a reason we gave it the Burgh.
There you go.
It's just kind of, it's just kind of weird when you say, like, hey, I just check out that video on x.com or that photo on x.com. Like, okay, that's just.
No, you don't say .com. You just say on X.
Yeah,
you
that's
almost,
You
almost feel like you're going to a site you shouldn't be going to or something.
That's my point. Like, funny enough, because you bring that up, I sent a video. It was one of my tweets. It was one of my tweets or something to my mother. I sent it. I texted it to my mother, and it just said X. And she was like, and you can probably imagine the initials, and then I had to tell her. So, yeah, this was because again, she doesn't keep up on what the change or anything. She just sees X.com, and that's what her mind jumped to. So, yeah, there you go.
We'll see.
I'm sure she's not the
Mom,
first.
get your mind out of the gutter.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's not the first. When you see, especially like Android, because you don't see the preview. All you see is like the literal URL. So even better.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, Chris, thank you as always. Every time we ask you to come on, you're always coming on, and it's always a great time every time you're here. So thank you for imparting all of your D3 hockey knowledge. We really appreciate it.
It's all good.
All right. So for Dave the Save Warner, I'm Scott Kimball. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week on the Central New York Hockey Report podcast.